Every day we are bombarded with the promise of easy money. We see the crypto scams, the NFT rug pulls, the pyramid schemes that collapse, and we wonder, how could people be so foolish? But what if I told you the blueprint for every one of these modern scams was perfected over 100 years ago by one man, an immigrant who arrived in America with $2 in his pocket and an insatiable hunger for the American dream. His name was Charles Ponzi, and in 1920 he made an impossible promise to the city of Boston, a 50% return on your investment in just 45 days. What followed was a financial mania so intense it would make him a millionaire in months and give his name to the most infamous scam in history. This is the story of the original get-rich-quick con, the man who perfected the lie, and the brutal lesson that when something seems too good to be true, it always is. To understand the scam, you have to understand the man. Carlo Charles Ponzi was not, at first, a master criminal. He was a master of failure. He arrived in Boston from Italy in 1903 with $2.50 to his name, having gambled away the rest on the voyage. He was charming, optimistic, and radiated a confidence he had not earned. For the next 15 years, he drifted. He worked as a waiter, a bank clerk, a fruit peddler. He was even imprisoned in Canada for check forgery, and later in Atlanta for smuggling immigrants. By 1919, he was back in Boston, broke, married, and desperate for a big break. And then, a letter arrived from a company in Spain. Inside the letter was a small, seemingly insignificant piece of paper, an international postal reply coupon. And in that moment, Charles Ponzi saw his miracle. The mechanism he discovered was, in theory, genius. In the early 20th century, you could buy a postal coupon in one country and exchange it for postage stamps in another. But because of the chaos of World War I, currencies were all over the place. Ponzi did the math. A coupon bought in Spain for the equivalent of 1 cent could be redeemed in Boston for 6 cents worth of American stamps. He wasn't just buying coupons, he was buying money at a discount. It was a form of currency arbitrage. He claimed he could buy 100,000 coupons in Europe, ship them to America, redeem them for $6,000 in stamps, sell the stamps for cash, and make a massive profit. This is the secret to every great scam. It has to sound legitimate. It can't be magic. It has to be based on a system that sounds just complex and clever enough to be real. Ponzi wasn't promising to invent anything. He was just promising to be the middleman in a secret, brilliant trade. On December 26, 1919, he founded the Securities Exchange Company. He walked into a small office, borrowed $200, and placed an ad. He didn't promise a 500% return. He started with something that sounded just crazy enough to be true. I will pay you $150 for every $100 you invest in 90 days. The first investors were cautious. A few friends, a few local shopkeepers. They handed over a few $100s. 90 days later, as promised, Ponzi paid them back, in full. Their $100 was now $150. They were ecstatic. They told their friends. They reinvested, this time with more. Ponzi then shortened the terms. 50% in 45 days. The money began to pour in. Why work at a factory for a year when you could make more in 6 weeks with Mr. Ponzi? By February 1920, Ponzi was taking in $5,000 a day. By March, $30,000 a day. By May, it was $400,000 a day. The city of Boston was gripped by Ponzi mania. This wasn't just the poor and uneducated. The lines outside his office at 27 School Street stretched for blocks. Factory workers stood next to lawyers, widows next to businessmen. It's estimated that 75% of the entire Boston police force had invested their life savings with Ponzi. Even seasoned bankers who should have known better secretly gave him their money. Why? Because it worked. Ponzi was paying out. People were coming back, their faces glowing, waving wads of cash. He had a simple, brilliant rule. Anyone could withdraw their money, plus the interest, at any time. This gave the entire operation a feeling of absolute safety and legitimacy. And Ponzi looked the part. He bought a 12-room mansion in the suburbs. He wore the finest pinstripe suits, diamond stick pins, and walked with a gold-tipped cane. He bought a custom-built yellow locomobile, the luxury car of its day. He was a celebrity, the great Ponzi, a hero of the working-class immigrant. the man who had found a way to beat the Wall Street elites at their own game. By July 1920, he was a multimillionaire, worth an estimated $15 million, over $200 million in today's money. He was taking in over $1 million a day. He even bought a controlling stake in a local bank. But underneath the glittering facade, the entire miracle was a lie. There was a problem with Ponzi's genius system. The math was right, but the logistics were impossible. To generate the kind of money he was paying out, he would have needed to buy and sell over 160 million postal reply coupons. The entire world at the time only had about 27,000 in circulation. He had barely bought any at all. So how was he paying those incredible 50% returns? He wasn't. The truth was simple, and it's the definition of the scheme that now bears his name. He was just taking the new money from investors in July and using it to pay off the investors from May. He wasn't running a business. He was running a house of cards, a financial bucket that was draining as fast as it was being filled. But the party was too loud for anyone to hear the cracks. Until one man, Richard Grozier, the acting publisher of the Boston Post, decided to ask the one question no one else would: how? On July 24, 1920, the Post ran a front-page story questioning the legitimacy of Ponzi's operation. Ponzi, in his arrogance, immediately stormed into the newspaper's office and sued them for $5 million for libel. He then started a PR campaign, telling his investors the elites were trying to crush him, their hero. The money poured in even faster, but the Post didn't back down. They hired financial reporter William McMasters to dig deeper. McMasters, at first a believer, quickly realized the truth. He found no evidence of any large-scale coupon trading. He found that Ponzi was hopelessly insolvent. On August 2nd, McMasters' story ran with a devastating front-page headline: "Ponzi is a financial idiot." That was the pin that burst the bubble. Panic set in. The lines outside Ponzi's office were no longer to invest. They were to withdraw. But the money wasn't there. It had been spent on Ponzi's lavish lifestyle, or had already been paid out to early investors who had long since vanished. On August 12, 1920, federal agents raided Ponzi's office. The house of cards collapsed. The man who was worth millions just weeks before was arrested. The investigation found he had over $7 million in debts, over $100 million today, and only $4 million in assets. Thousands of people, the police officers, the factory workers, the widows who had handed him their life savings, were ruined. They got back on average less than 30 cents on the dollar. The American dream had been a nightmare. Charles Ponzi was convicted, imprisoned, and eventually deported back to Italy in 1934, as broke as the day he arrived. He died in poverty in a charity hospital in Brazil. But he didn't just leave a trail of financial ruin. He gave his name to the crime itself. The Ponzi scheme became the official term for any fraudulent investment that pays returns to old investors using money from new investors. His blueprint was so simple, so effective, so perfectly tuned to human psychology that it has been copied endlessly ever since. The names and the products change, but the lie remains the same. In the 1990s, Albanian pyramid schemes, which were just national-scale Ponzi schemes, promised massive returns and collapsed the entire country's economy, leading to civil war. In the 2000s, Bernie Madoff perfected Ponzi's model. He didn't use postal coupons. He used the illusion of exclusive access and fake Wall Street trades. He didn't promise 50% in 45 days. He promised a steady, reliable 10 to 12% a year, which was just as impossible, but sounded safer. He ran his scheme for decades, stealing over $60 billion in the largest Ponzi scheme in history. And today, the same blueprint is running rampant in the digital world. Cryptocurrency high-yield programs that promise 20% APY. NFT projects with a guaranteed floor price that suddenly rug pull, with the founders vanishing with the money. The technology changes, from paper coupons to digital tokens. But the scam is identical. It preys on the same timeless human emotions: greed, the fear of missing out, and the desperate, intoxicating hope of getting rich for doing nothing. Charles Ponzi didn't invent greed. He just perfected the lie. He created a financial mirage so powerful that people chose to believe in it. right up until the moment it all turned to dust. It's a 100-year-old lesson that, to this day, we still have not learned.